Do you think their knowledge and skills is enough for them to progress here?
If you're good at what you're doing, you can progress anywhere in the world. There's nothing that's going to stop you. Learn to build rapport. So basically have interpersonal skills. You can't be a snobbish, knowledgeable doctor like you can in India.
Every place is different, and the dynamics of the UK, where 42% of the workforce, well, at least doctors, are internationally trained doctors. How is training here?
So trainees and non-trainees, they're seeing the same patients, they're sharing the same workload, they're working under the same consultants. They have a few more teaching sessions, they have supervisors, they have a portfolio which they have to get ticked off in a certain time. If they can get into training, it's a good place to work.
So the jobs that we do here, or any doctor in this planet, is very difficult.
What keeps us going is the fulfillment. And another thing is that you have to take care of yourself first. You have to learn to deal with the stress for yourself, manage your health. We would be a better space to help anyone at work.
I have a very fantastic guest today with me, Dr. Khushboo Lalwani. She's a very good friend of mine, and she has experience of living and working in 3 different countries. She comes with a wealth of experience, and let me take you on a journey, Khushboo's perspective about her experiences of life in different countries and experience of working in medicine in different countries. You've had quite an experience, like obviously changing so many countries. It would give you a good reference of how things are done differently in different cultures. How has that changed your perspective towards problems, or generally outtake of life?
So I think problems in life are different. It just gives me a relatability to a lot of people. If I was only from India, I would relate only to Indians. But because I've lived with people from so many cultures and so many religions and so many backgrounds, I think I have a relatability with almost every other person, which helps me connect with people quicker. And I think the biases that a person from a single background would have, I tend to not have them.
Exactly. So if something is true in one culture or in one place, is not necessarily true in other cultures. Everyone have a different perspective, and I think that's what I like about experiencing different cultures and places. So if you travel Europe, if you travel even in the UK, if you travel Asia, there are humans are same everywhere. Like the famous movie Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara, they have basic same emotion, they have basic needs. It's just a different approach to how things are dealt.
And the more you travel, the more you live with different people, you learn why they do what they do and why they think the way they think, how they live their lives. And you can probably adapt the good things from their culture. So I think I've been doing that while I've been moving around.
Like what? What have you picked up from, let's say,
China?
China? Yeah.
Well, drinking hot drinks rather than cold.
They love hot water, soup. Yeah.
So if you go to a restaurant, when you ask for water, instead of giving you a glass of cold water or just room temperature water, they'll serve you boiling hot water.
Yeah.
Because they do not have the concept of having cold drinks. I mean, they do have the usual cold drinks and everything, but it's not part of their culture. So I had to unlearn drinking cold water or anything cold with my food.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good habit. Another good habit that I learned was having early dinner around 5 to 6 p.m., which I've tried to maintain.
It's hard to, but then we try.
Most times, but that's where I started. You always learn something good from, you can, if that's your choice.
Yeah, no,
you can adapt good qualities from everyone.
I used to feel bad about going to China and then obviously coming here. A little bit, not that much, but I used to think that whether it's the right decision or whether I've taken the right choice, because then I'll be losing up on what's happening in India, for example. But the new things in medicine is the way things are done there. But now I embrace that, and I think it has taught me important lessons, and it's broadened my perspective definitely. So I'm proud that I got the opportunity to practice and see different cultures.
That's the thing. I think even because we have experienced medicine in India as well, we've worked there. We've done our undergrad in China, so although we don't have a massive exposure, we've seen how things work.
You spent quite significant years in India as well, in Delhi, working in
Yes,
all the
yes.
renowned hospitals.
Yes.
Medanta, was it?
No, it was Max.
Max
Yeah.
Saket or
Yeah, Max
Max
Saket.
Saket. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And I've worked in many government-run hospitals in Delhi as well.
Yeah.
Before coming here, obviously, I was there. So, yeah, like I was talking about, having different experiences in different settings. India, I think what's, I don't know about you, but India taught me resilience. Working in hospitals in India is a difficult task.
It is, and it helps you focus on only what's important, because I remember the first time when I came here and when I started working, the first feeling that I got was, why is everything so slow? And why does everyone keep saying that things are so busy? And they're just chit-chatting all day. They're spending 15 minutes, 10 minutes with each patient, just chit-chatting about the weather and this and that and about everything else. But then I realized that there we don't spend time with the person, with the patient. We just focus on what's wrong. We treat the patient and then the patient's out. So we can see 20 patients in a day, and that's just part of the job. And here, if we are asked to see more than 7 or 8 patients per day, we say that, oh, it's a very busy day, because we go in depth and things here take time. Every patient is really looked after from all the perspectives that we wouldn't even consider in India. So it's good and bad.
I guess it's just adapting to the type of problem you have in front of you.
Yeah.
So in different places, for example, in Delhi, the problem was the masses. You had a lot of patients to cover, and you can't, you physically can't spend a lot of time. That's the demand of the nature, that you have to be quick, you have to see patients quick. And here, because population is not part of the problem, I guess you spend more time. But it's about catering to different places and their needs.
And I think also just the way the healthcare system functions, here we look at everything, their mobility, their social circumstances, the support that they have, their mental health. In India, none of that is our problem except their health. We just treat their body and that's it.
You know what I've noticed? At first, it might look like that, but then if you go really granular, there are these services, there are technicians being trained in all these sectors. We just don't end up utilizing them a lot, and they're not in demand that much. And that happens. I was speaking to one of the pharmacists at my workplace, and she knew someone who was working in Australia, and their pharmacists have a totally different role than pharmacists in the UK. So she was saying that pharmacists there weren't that independent. I might be wrong. This is just a word of mouth. And so she was like, in a way, pharmacists are not given the power to prescribe that much, or they're not being involved that much. Again, I can be wrong, but it just differs from place to place. So these technicians, these roles are present in India, but I guess they're not in demand that much.
Yes, I agree, because while I was working in oncology while I was working in Max, so because it was oncology and it requires a very precise mixing of these medications because they're not normal medications, we would have a pharmacist mix all of these medications than a nursing staff do it. So I think that's the only department I've seen pharmacists work, and I've worked closely with them. But if I'd not worked in that specific department, I don't think I would have come across a pharmacist working in an Indian hospital. So,
who has such an important
yes,
role in multidisciplinary teams.
So I think they only hire pharmacists in very specific roles like oncology, where they only work with these medications. And it's not like it is here, where they have to be present in every ward, go through every patient's medications while they're staying and also before discharge. And I think it makes a lot of our work easier as well.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, in any other country, like while we were in India, we were responsible for all the medications, all the doses, everything that was happening.
Mm-hmm. No, it definitely distributes the work, and everyone's pulling a little bit of weight. And yeah, I think this every system that's currently at what it is has gone through a process and catering to the needs of the place. How are you enjoying your life here?
I think once I moved to a place, this I've noticed from the patterns of my moving patterns. So when I get to a new place, I'm very excited, super excited that, okay, new place, new friends, trying to figure out the city, trying to learn what the place is like and what the good good things to do are, good places to eat are, finding my ground in that city. So that takes about at least a year or more, but then at least a year. So the first year is always exciting. And I think we had the best year together.
Best year, yeah.
Yeah. So out of all the places I've moved, I think my best move in year was moving to Manchester, because I think we had the money, we had the time, we had the right friends.
Right. Everything was just perfect.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we had the perfect mix, and I think we made the most out of it. We traveled to so many places. We not just discovered Manchester, we traveled all around UK.
Yeah.
So
What was the first place? Do you remember that you
Wales.
Wales?
So I think it was a lighthouse that we visited. That was the
Exactly.
first place.
Yeah. It's still on our Instagram, at least my Instagram. I don't know. It's what's it called?
Llandudno.
Llandudno? No, it's not.
Something like that.
And even Llandudno, it's not pronounced like that. So I was working in ICU, and then I had my colleague who we were just chatting about what his plans are.
He's
And he
Welsh.
No, I think, yeah, I don't know, maybe Welsh, but he said, I'm going to London. I was like, London? No, it's like something else. But he meant to say Llandudno, but I'm sure it's not pronounced like that. So I'm not even very. So Welsh is a totally different language. Yeah, and I don't even want to try and offend people. So the place, there was a lighthouse north of Wales, Anglesey.
Yes.
Anglesey. It's called Anglesey.
Yes.
We went there, and then we had a nice drive. There's a place called Snake Pass, or was it Penny Pass? A pass in North Wales, and we drove through it, and it was nice, very nice drive.
Well, I was the passenger princess. So
You were at the back seat. You were at the back seat. Me and Kenny were taking turns to drive.
Yes.
And
I think you guys were really excited because that was your first time driving in UK.
Yeah.
And
we'd never driven before in the
I
UK.
think that was the worst time to travel, because I would never advise anyone to travel anywhere during Christmas because everything's shut. But we were so excited because that was literally our first time going outside Manchester. And we'd been here for 6 months already and not been anywhere. So I think we were just crazy. If I were to do that now, if someone asked me, do you want to go out in December in that rainy weather to anywhere outdoors and go hike, I would say no.
You wouldn't.
Yeah. But yeah.
I guess it was just the excitement of exploring.
Yes, it was the excitement, it was the company, and like I said,
craziness,
yes, the right mix. So yeah, I had a very fun first year here. And then obviously you start, like life starts coming in, you start getting busier, you focus on what's important work-wise, career-wise, also personal life. Everything else. You start putting things in place. You also try and have fun, but then it's not only fun. Like we were having in our first year. So I think we still have fun.
But then it's not like
it's
when
not an
you first
everyday
start.
thing.
Yeah, definitely.
We're not going out 4 days a week.
We weren't going out 4 days a week, Khushboo.
I thought so. I mean, at least like we started in trauma and orthopedics, we would have long lunches with the whole team.
But we worked as hard as our lunches, like as long as the lunches were.
Yeah.
It was very busy time. Orthopedic was very busy.
Yes, and it was a big learning curve, more so for you guys than for me, because I didn't have to do on-calls.
Oh yes, you got away with on-calls. So what are on-calls?
Without on-calls.
What are on-calls? What?
So on-calls are when we have to work these long shifts, which are 12 and a half hours long. And basically you're dealing with all the emergency stuff. You're not doing the usual ward duties. You're attending to, if you're in orthopedics, the trauma calls, any new referrals. So everything comes to you. And if you have a red support, if you're lucky, otherwise you're on your own.
You're on your own.
Yeah.
It was like diving into the deep end of the pool.
Exactly.
You learn to swim by yourself. It was actually a very important and a challenging experience at the same time, because it's a tertiary hospital, and at the time you were by yourself. You always didn't have a registrar that can support you or a consultant, especially after the hours of like after 4. And then you have anywhere, if there is an urgent emergency or an incident, then they'll rush the trauma to your hospital, and then you'll be there in charge.
Yeah, and I think we were very new. We didn't really understand the system back then. And we didn't understand the difference back then. Only when now we reflect and we look back, we understand that it was probably not a very safe situation where we were put in. But that's not on us. We were obviously trying our best and doing our best.
I guess in a way, if the good thing about here, working in healthcare here, is that you are supported. So even if from orthopedic team, you were the first to respond, there are 5 other team members from different other teams, for example, anesthetics, major trauma, and cardiothoracic trauma.
The ED team itself.
ED team, there'll be at least 5 or 6 other team members that'll be there. And things are approached in a team manner, multidisciplinary team manner. But what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome when you just started here in the UK?
I don't think I really faced a very big challenge here because it felt like this is my dream job since I've moved here. I wouldn't say I was struggling in India, but it was a big learning curve in India because there was no time to do anything. You had very little time and you had to do everything within that time. But here there was more time to do everything, which I think gave us an ease to learn at our own pace. We were pushed at some situations, but there was always someone to ask. So I think that support really helped. So even if we were stuck in challenging situations, I don't think it's felt as bad because there's always been support from a consultant, from a reg, from an SHO who's been there for more time than you. So even if it was DNO, I think we always had fun colleagues who would support us, senior colleagues who have been working there for more than a few years, even when we were new there. And medicine has always been supported that way. So I think that's a good thing about here, that there's always someone to ask. And if you do feel you're stuck in a situation which you can't handle, you can always say no. You can always say that I think this is beyond me and someone else should be looking after this, which I don't think we could do back there in India, or we didn't think of it like that if we were the only one dealing with it. So I think that's something I've learned here, that if you realize that the situation is not something that you can handle or you're not confident enough, you can always escalate and you can say that I don't think I can do this. And there's always someone who can help you out.
That's true. So you learn in a supportive environment, and everyone encourages you to take initiative, but you're not left alone.
Yes. So challenging, I mean, it's been a learning curve, but I've not felt cornered or challenged that way.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think for me, if I'm being totally honest, the challenging bit in starting a new job was basically to find what I can do and what I can't. And there was this unsaid fear of doing the wrong thing because you're in a totally different environment. What if you prescribe some medication which you think is right, but it's not accepted here, or it's not, all of the medication, even medications are different. So some of the medications that you use in different healthcare systems are not present here. They do use alternatives. So I guess I used to get scared about if you are following the protocols, and what happens if you don't follow a protocol? Will you be discouraged?
Yeah, will you lose your license?
Yeah, will you lose license? There's this scare about, you hear scary stories about losing licenses. So I guess, but it was never a true fear.
How did you deal with it then?
First of all, 6 week of observation period came handy.
I was going to say that, you know, a lot of that fear, I had that as well, but then just observing everyone and seeing that, okay, it's okay to put my own notes. I was even afraid of putting my own notes and putting my name there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that eased off a lot of fear. Yeah. And
was it 6 week?
It was 8 weeks.
No, it was 6 weeks. 6 week of, I think so.
I remember it.
Unless you were privileged in trauma and orthopedics beyond everyone, that you were not going on
calls. It was 2 months of shadowing from what I remember, but yeah, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, same week. I think we started feeling confident in the first couple of weeks itself. So it didn't really matter. We were seeing patients independently way before the 6 and
before the 6 weeks. By the end of 6 weeks, you were expected to be as efficient as the person working alongside you.
It didn't even make a difference. I think because we're already doctors, we already have our degrees, we've passed our exams, we've done our labs.
You have a lot of work experience as well.
Yeah. So it was only our fear that we had to overcome and understand how things work here. The other things you just learn along the way. Yeah.
also we were paid like properly. There was no deduction in the pay. So even if we were on technically observation period, observation for us, we were getting paid. So that was good. And the £4,000 relocation
allowance. That was really helpful because when you first come in, you are thinking about money.
Yeah,
You're converting rupees to pounds.
that happens a lot.
Yes, and we were basically even calculating our bus rides and this and that, which we learned to ease in after we get more paychecks and we learn to live in pounds and not in rupees anymore.
It takes a bit of time, but that transition happens in your head where you stop converting the currencies.
Yeah, I think that happens when you move from anywhere to anywhere. Now, when we go back to India, we think in pounds. We don't.
Pounds, exactly. Yeah.
We're like, oh, this is just £1. A cab ride for £2.
Exactly. I calculate cab rides in pounds and I decide based on that.
Yeah.
Okay, £5 would cost me this. Let's do
Exactly. And people there are like,
that. Yeah.
you're spending so much. And we're like, no, this is just £1 or £2 or £5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the place where you live at, you start living by the standards of that place with time. But I think that's how life is.
That's how life is. Yes, exactly.
It's maybe a little bit different for us because we've been living away from our families since we moved to college, but not a lot of people have done that while they were young or during their undergrad years. So moving to a new country in their older years, like when in their later 20s or whatever, is a little bit difficult because they're not used to how it is emotionally. I mean, we've so far talked about the challenges that we face when you move to a new country. You've talked about it with others as well. But how it affects you emotionally is something that not everyone thinks about. They only realize it with time. So I think that's a good thing.
It's important to consider that as well.
Yeah. And I think it also changes with time. Like in our first year, how we feel when first move to a country versus how it changes in the next few years.
Yeah.
I'm sure, like we've discussed before, every time we come back from home, we have this spell of 2 days where we're like, why are we here? What are we doing? We reconsider all our life choices and life decisions. But then we get back to our lives and then we know why we are here. Everyone has a reason. It's very important to focus on your emotional and mental health while you're living in a place like this, where we do not have family support or cultural support or social support, and you're basically on your own. I think that way we all lucked out, that we all came at the same time, started at the same time, from the same country, similar ages, similar backgrounds. So we all could relate, and it felt like we're in college again.
Yeah.
And just with our own friends, college friends, but living
with money.
Yes, living with money and having the time to not study but to have fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very important part. Have you had days where you've had emotional ups and downs?
Oh, I have plenty of those myself as well, especially because it's something that you can't think in advance or plan. When you get in that situation, that is something that you experience. And by that, I mean, you read about Facebook groups, you read on Facebook groups about these things where people share the challenges that they face emotionally to cope about. For example, you're suddenly now in a different town, living by yourself or with someone who doesn't speak your language or has different culture or background. And then suddenly you find yourself alone in a totally different foreign world. You don't make friends that easily sometimes. So it's important to consider how you cope these challenges as well. A lot of people, it's not for all, like living abroad, living far from family is a challenge. And obviously you have to weigh what you're gaining from it and what you're sacrificing. And it's for everyone. Like me and Ketan were talking about beyond boundaries. So human everywhere are same. Even people from the UK who go to Australia, a lot of them come back eventually. And the reason when I asked them is that they couldn't spend time alone far from home. They wanted the family.
Yeah.
So it's important to consider that.
Exactly. So humans are social beings. As much as we'd like to think that we are independent or we can make friends, I think when you become older, I wouldn't say your ability to make friends goes down, but you're busier with more important stuff, and your time to socialize or invest in people, because friendships need investments as well, that goes down. And with busier work schedules, you don't really have the time. And plus, like in later ages, most people around their late 20s, early 30s, they start having families, their own families. So once they have a family, their focus becomes the family. So I think it affects people who are on their own more. So that is definitely something that people should consider. If they're on their own, have they lived alone before? If they're coming from a very full family and they're not used to doing their chores and managing their emotional health alone, I would recommend do a taster month or 2 or 5 months. Don't plan your whole life and move to a country, because even though we had lived alone for years and years, I think we still struggle with it sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Because we don't have families here, and we miss our families on days like Diwali or our birthdays. We have each other, and that's a blessing. But there's always a lack. And I think reflecting on what kind of a person we are also is important before making a huge move like that, because you can be the smartest person, you can have all your portfolios ready, you can move to a new job at the best post, grow in your career, but if you can't cope and live in that place, it means nothing. You might want to just go back in one day, and I mean, your career could be shining bright, like your future could be shining bright in that career, but if you're emotionally not happy, it's going to mean nothing, and you're not going to be able to grow into that.
Yes.
Because different people are, I think we are not introverts, we're very social people. We like to interact even with our colleagues, and we're someone who like to take initiative to socialize, spend time on socialization, invest in friendships. So I think we've adapted ourselves to not be lonely, and we're happy alone, like we were discussing in the beginning. That
Circling back to the first point.
That we're beginning to enjoy our own time, but we also value the time that we spend with our friends and family. But it's not for everyone. So I think that's something people should really consider before jumping in. And not just that, I've noticed that even people who move as families, like a couple, even they struggle, because even they need a bigger group to socialize other than the 2 people or the children that they have. And for them, it's even harder to make
they have
friends.
a smaller child, like they have a small young one.
Yes, and they have to adjust their times and schedules around their children, which makes socializing even harder. And finding families to socialize is even a bigger, harder hurdle. So I think
it is not all shiny and bright. It comes with its own challenges.
Exactly.
And do your research, basically, if you're trying to move borders.
If you're resilient, there are groups of, I'm sure it's for all the countries, they have their own groups. Like
communities.
Here we have lots of Indian groups. They have temples where people can socialize on occasions or even otherwise, and they can meet different people, find who they vibe with, even as families. But again, you have to be resilient enough. You have to have the time. And here, if especially both people are working, if the couple's working, there's no time for all of this. And all the time that you have, you'd want to spend it with your family, or you'd want to travel, not spend time socializing. So it's like a big trade-off. I think we're lucky that way, that we have everything that we need. And we didn't really have to go around making efforts to find people to socialize or make friends with, because we're in a big city. Food is another
major plus point.
Yeah, it's not a problem for us because we have all the good food available here. But if it's a small town, or if it's a country where you don't have the tastes that you want to have, and people who can't cook, they would really struggle. You would have to know how to cook or learn how to cook.
Yeah.
I think food is an emotion for a lot of people as
Yeah.
well.
If someone is really brilliant in what they do, they are very skillful, they're very knowledgeable, and they want to move borders, they want to come to UK or even similar healthcare setups comparable like Australia or Canada, US. Do you think their knowledge and skills is enough for them to progress here?
If you're good at what you're doing, you can progress anywhere in the world. There's nothing that's going to stop you.
But I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, what beyond the knowledge, what skills other than the knowledge you require here to grow and progress?
So you have to learn to build rapport. So basically have interpersonal skills. You can't be a snobbish, knowledgeable doctor like you can in India. You can't tell the patient, I told you this, don't bother me anymore. You do whatever you want. So this attitude can work in India. And I think a lot of doctors, because we don't have the time there to explain everything to the patient. To
Yeah,
explain
different
the
needs of
diagnosis.
the requirement.
Yes, and I think patients there are also very compliant. Even if they're non-compliant, I mean, the doctor said what they said. You either do it or you don't do it. They're not going to. Nobody's going to question that. But here, you have to learn to be humble. You cannot be proud of your knowledge. I mean, you can be confident. You can be firm, but you can't be snobbish. Like in India, there's always a hierarchy from beginning, from the nurses to the junior doctors to the consultant, and consultant is like God. Nobody speaks before or after the consultant. But here, if someone's already a consultant in a place or expects to be treated or revered like they would in any other place where there's this hierarchy, I think they'll be very disappointed.
I guess you cannot be patronizing, and there is a understanding that everyone works together, even though they might not be as well at the same post as you are, but they eventually will. And everyone is a colleague here. Everyone is treated equally. No one's being treated with disrespect. One of the other questions, well, part of the question that I wanted to talk about was, obviously I've seen some very experienced doctors come into the UK and work here, but they struggle with communication and interpersonal skills. Although, like the exams for medical license here, they compose a lot of marks for communication and interpersonal skills. So I guess in a way, you having knowledge is obviously good and it'll give you an edge, but you also have to consider how good are you going to be in using that knowledge.
Because I think if you have very good knowledge, you're still not going to survive a lot because everyone's going to hate you. Here, nurses.
Everyone's going to hate you.
Yeah, exactly. So the nurses are just going to talk over you here. And if you think that if that's going to hurt your ego and you're going to say something that's not very pleasant, you'll be incidented or datexed or whatever by the nurses, by the doctors, by junior doctors, by support staff, by everyone basically, by your colleagues. So you won't survive. And all that knowledge, you may be right, but then the way you say it, if that's wrong, it's not going to take you anywhere.
Yeah. So I guess GMC has a very good guidance upon this topic. And GMC guidelines are basically a way of them telling you what is expected out of you. It composes of 4 sections. Just one section of those 4 sections is knowledge and skills, and others are based on your behavior with your colleagues, culture, your behavior and relationship with the patients, and some other things as well.
The SJTs that we have in our exams, so much of that is how we communicate with our colleagues. What do we do in situations where we think our colleague's coming late or our colleague's drunk, and how do we handle that situation? So I think working here requires you to be a human being who can interact with other human beings, and only your knowledge would maybe get you here, but making your survival easy here, your knowledge won't do it. Because you also need to interact with your patients, and we deal with all kinds of patients.
Oh yes, you have to be patient.
Yes. And sometimes, because we're from a different culture, the way we say things might not come across right, even though we don't mean to sound that way.
100% true. Happens to
Yes.
every international doctor, I
Exactly.
think.
And but if you already have an attitude, I'm sure it's going to come across in
Rude,
the
yeah.
yes,
And you're going to cause a lot of problems and for
yes,
yourself.
Yes, and especially with the colleagues as well, because everyone's working in a high pressure environment. You know, we have so many interactions between our consultants or between our colleagues that we just brushing past each other and trying not to, using polite words and trying to just calm everything down.
What is the way around it? So, for example, obviously, like I've seen NHS is 40%, more than 40% internationally trained doctors, and the rest of it is local native population. And I've seen anywhere from a junior resident doctor to a consultant, everyone face this problem up to some extent in the beginning where they want to say one thing, but they come across as something else. I guess, do you have any ideas about what they can do to sort of mitigate this?
I think the focus should be to if you think you're stuck in a situation or you are in a situation where things are escalating, to try and de-escalate it as much as possible. Because if that's not your intention, even as per GMC, should be patient safety first. So if this is about a patient, our focus should be on focusing whatever is safest for the patient and for everyone else as well. And if you think that you're right in whatever you're saying, but if the other person doesn't agree, you can give your opinion there in a polite manner, agree to disagree, and maybe just not carry on the conversation further. You can reflect about it later. Maybe when it's a different time, when you both are not stressed, maybe you could go back and speak to that colleague and tell the person that this is what I meant and I didn't mean to do this, or didn't mean for us to have the conversation the way it went or whatever. So I think these are the ways around it. And I think this is how we should also operate in life. So it works anyway. Yeah.
I guess there's a huge emphasis on feedback and reflection here
Yeah.
in the UK. And although you might like figure out what these things are, these are incorporated in the curriculum, in the training curriculum that we do. We have to make forms and get them signed. Can you explain to the viewers what these topics are? What is reflection and what is feedback?
So a reflection is any incident that happened, or like we were talking about, if you've had something that you think was not very positive, reflection is basically what you've learned out of it and how you would change your practice going further. If you were put in the same situation, what would you do differently next time? And I think the point of writing that down is ingraining it into yourself that I would remember this. So reflections, I used to think that it's rubbish. And why do we have to write stories for silly reasons, just for portfolio reasons? But when we're writing something down, it does make us think about whatever we are writing in depth. And I think it ingrains it into our mind that the next time we do this, we'll remember this. So otherwise, it's very easy for us to forget with the chaos that goes on every day.
Yeah, exactly. When I properly started writing reflections, I've started it because of my portfolio, because you have to, and because my supervisors asked me to. But once I've gotten into the habit of writing reflections, I feel more relaxed. So I think it helps with the anxiety, and I learn a lot as well. And I have this distinct example that I want to share today. I had confrontation. I'll use the word confrontation with one of my colleagues who was from ED, and there's a lot of communication. So it's not always necessary that you'll agree on every step and perspective. And that conversation took an aggressive turn. There was a verbal aggression. And when I went to my registrar that day, I tried to get some information. I tried to reflect, and she told me a very nice thing about reflection. So that day I was reflecting in a way that, okay, only if that person should have acted in a different way, if he could have not responded to me like that, it would not have caused a lot of trouble. But then she said, reflection is not about how others would have changed something. It's about how would you have differently tackled the situation. So that blew my mind away. And I changed my perspective and I started thinking about what I could have done differently. And I still appreciate that registrar's thought. It wasn't just a single sentence from her, but it changed my perspective.
Exactly. So that's what I think, even in life, and even especially in the hospital, like you said, ED, it's the most stressful place. And humans, we're all human beings. We tend to get anxious or get stressed. And human beings are never at their best behavior, I would say. They can be very focused because the adrenaline and cortisol makes us very focused. So we're focusing on what we're saying, but we're not at our best behaviors necessarily. So it's very easy to get riled up. It's very easy to feel confronted. It's very easy to attack, and it's very easy to defend. So reflecting, obviously, if you put in the same situation with all the same factors, we can only change ourselves. We can only change our behavior, because all of these things can come back tomorrow in a different form. So it's basically what we can do differently, so that even if you're in the same situation, we can handle it in a different way. So I think what she said
Was totally right, yeah.
Yes, was very useful, even in life generally as well.
How do you feel about training opportunities here?
I think it was easier a few years ago, but rules are changing now. So from what the new rules are, apparently the UK graduates, people with ILR, now would be offered training posts before everyone else.
Yep.
So the training situation here is now more difficult than it was in the last few years. It had been getting more and more competitive, but I think it's a fair move, because, like we were talking about, it's not easy moving to different countries, leaving your families. So it's fair that people who belong here should
Get prioritized
first, because if you're Indians, and if India told us that we're going to offer this seat to someone else and not you, we would feel very offended.
But I guess the dynamics are very different. I agree. In a way, I relate to what the government has done here with the prioritization, but every place is different. And the dynamics of the UK, where 42% of the workforce, well, at least doctors, are internationally trained doctors, I guess it's not as easy. But then again, people will have different perspective. But I guess the question I was trying to ask was, if someone is watching this and they are fixated that they want to train in a competitive and highly skilled healthcare setup, how is training here? How do you think the trainees are being trained?
I think they're not very different. The job is not very different from what we are doing every day. So trainees and non-trainees, they're seeing the same patients, they're sharing the same workload, they're working under the same consultants. I think it's just that they have a few more teaching sessions, they have supervisors, they have a portfolio which they have to get ticked off in a certain time, which we don't have the pressure of. We're not very different, but if someone wants to work in a high pressure environment, I think it's a good place to, if they can get into training, it's a good place to work.
And of course, there are different ways to achieve the same thing here. That's the brilliance of healthcare setup here, that you have alternate pathways, you have CSER, you have fellowships. There's definitely more than one way to do the same thing.
And I think people shouldn't just read up everything online, and before they come here, this is something they should keep in mind, that they shouldn't come in with a set number of years, that we would move to UK, do this, do that, and then leave if that's their plan, or become a consultant. I think then they would be very disappointed, because rules can change anytime, your circumstances can change anytime, the opportunities that you have might change anytime. So it's a good place to train, but people should remember that if they're coming in with a time crunch, they might be disappointed. If they think that, okay, fine, they're more flexible with their time, then it's a good place.
It's a good place.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this. If you were to choose your retirement place, where would you retire out of all the countries you have?
So my mark of monotony is around 5, 6, 7 years. That's when I start feeling like, okay, this place is getting monotonous for me.
Okay.
So Manchester is still not feeling monotonous to me, which is a good sign.
Yeah.
When I get closer to there, that's where I start feeling like, okay, now I don't want to
You
stay in
want
this
something
place
new.
anymore.
Yeah,
Now I
yeah.
need a change. But I think when I was in China, I definitely knew that this is not a place where I want to stay long term. It's not a bad place to live for a few years. So UK is not bad, I think, to live long term. But then I think I'm so even now just only mostly thinking like a single person because that's how I've mostly lived. If I talk about retirement,
You could just say, Naman, what a stupid question. I'm still young and I'm still active. All of my limbs are working, alive and kicking. Stop asking me these stupid questions about retirement.
I think it's a valid question because everyone's going to grow old and it's important to think about these things, not necessarily have a plan set in stone, but maybe just think around it and keep thinking around it. At least we're thinking in the right way. If, like, for me, the next goal is to make myself fit, not because I want to be fit now, but when I'm 70 and 80, I don't want to be having fractures and falling and breaking bones, and I need muscles for that. So I want to build muscles not just for my immediate
Yeah, you
health,
look
but
after yourself for the future as well.
exactly, so that when I'm 70 and 80, I should still be fit. I should not be on a bed. And especially seeing patients every day reminds us how important it is to take care of our health.
When you interact with patients, does this give you a feeling that you chose to become a doctor? That was a right decision.
Oh, yes, I love my job. I've never, when I go to the hospital, I forget everything else. And I know sometimes we crib about this and that, but I think when I'm at work, I feel like I'm at the right place and I'm doing the right thing. That's the only thing we get. I mean, I feel satisfied doing that. If I've helped a person in a day, done even a cannula successfully, I think it makes me happy because it feels like we've done a small part to make someone's life better.
Yeah.
So it is fulfilling. I think anything you do to help anyone makes you feel fulfilled.
Let me ask you this. So, the jobs that we do here, or any doctor in this planet, is very difficult, and you have to go through extensive training. You have to spend long hours studying, and then even when you finish your studies, your lifestyle is such that you spend a lot of time. Your work is really stressful sometimes, and there's a life at risk all the time on the line. What keeps you going even after so much stress?
What keeps us going is a fulfillment. And another thing is that you have to take care of yourself first. Like I was talking, that you have to learn to deal with the stress. You should not get, I mean, I'm not saying that you should not get stressed, but you have to learn to manage the stress for yourself, manage your health. So living here, spending time alone, I think with time is teaching me to focus on my stress management, focus on my health, which as a doctor in India, because you get so little time, you don't have time to focus on all of these things. So if we manage our own stress and our own health first, we would be in a better space to help anyone at work.
So let's, for example, say you're not fit someday, or you're feeling stressed. Do you have option to not go to work?
Yes, and I think NHS always encourages that even if you already are at work, but if you're not feeling like you're giving your best, or if you're not feeling up to it, or if you feel that you're not safe enough to work today, you don't need to work. You can take a sick leave and you can go home. And if you think this is a prolonged stress situation, you can always go to your GP and get a sign off for a longer period. So that again is something that I had not heard or not thought of before I moved to NHS. It feels good that you're not just a number, and your situation can be mental, physical, or any sort of situation, but your health, you can make decisions about it. And if you're not feeling 100%, you don't need to go to work, because if you're not your 100%, you're going to make more mistakes. You're going to be an unsafe doctor, and that's not good for anyone. Your team, especially, we're always short staffed. They're relying on you, and they're relying on you giving you 100% there. So you're dealing with lives. You can't, I mean, everyone make mistakes, but then you're more prone to make mistakes if you're not your best.
If you're not your best. So just for reference, what happens if you've gone to work one day and then you're not feeling well halfway through the shift? What will happen, or what will be the reaction of the people if you told them that you don't feel fit enough to continue and that you think you want to go home?
I don't know about the other hospitals, but I'm sure, I mean, a lot of hospitals would be supportive, but at MRI, at our hospital, I think everyone is more than supportive. They would always encourage you to go home, even if you're saying that, no, I think I can make it, I don't know. But they would encourage you to the day off.
Even more than you, I think.
Yes, yes. They would support you. They would tell you that it's okay, we'll manage. And they do take on the extra work. They split it amongst themselves and they would do the job, even if they're short-staffed, but not let you overstretch or ask you to please do this or do that.
To stay at the expense of your own health. So this has happened to me once. Unfortunately, I wasn't feeling good enough to carry on working. I was on a long day on call that day, and I discussed this with my colleagues then at that day. I felt so guilty. I don't know about if you face this. I feel guilty sometimes about leaving them, but they were like pretty chill. They were, don't feel guilty about it. You have to go. And I'm telling everyone, I'm telling the rota coordinator, I've told the consultant on call, you can go. It's not a problem. Just take rest. And when you feel better, come to work. And I was like, wow.
So when you look at a culture like this, it also imbibes in you. Because when you see someone who's not very well or not feeling up to it, we feel more encouraged to step in as well, because when you receive kindness, you want to give it back.
Yeah, exactly.
So when you see someone who's stressed and maybe not talking about it, I think you've told me about a junior or a colleague who was not feeling very up to it, and then you went and offered help.
Oh, can't even remember. I do that. Yeah, I do that.
Yeah. You told me it was a female colleague who was a little bit stressed.
Oh, yes. I think I remember now.
So I think we just learn to, give back the kindness that we receive. And I think it's a team. You can never work alone.
It's a culture
NHS,
thing.
exactly. NHS is not running on one person. So it's always important to take care of whoever you're working with. And it's good to see that we feel cared for here in every way, or at least supported.
I guess what goes around comes around. And with that, we are coming near to the end of this episode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Khushboo. Thank you so much for having this nice chat with me. And it'll be good to have another meeting, another chat sometime other than this.
Definitely. I think I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me here.
Of course.
I think we talked about a lot of things about our journey from China to here and how we came here. So it was like a nice rewind for me. Yeah.
Nostalgia is definitely kicking in. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye, and I'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.